find it again.
Okay, welcome everyone. It's so nice to see everyone here. I see so many familiar faces, a few new faces. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to West East, we, Poets of the Pandemic and Beyond. I'm Lynn McGee, founder of the series, and my co-hosts are the amazing poets. Whoa, Bruce, can you, okay, Bruce. Okay, he wasn't supposed to share that yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was sharing it.
Okay, get a grip. Susana. All right, this will stop other screen sharing. Do you want to continue? Cancel.
At least we're having fun. At least it's never boring.
Yeah.
So, can we all
Listen, it
read
won't be the
together?
first time there's been an accidental share on this Zoom meeting, so. All right.
So we all have to be careful what we have on below the waist, right?
Please don't walk up, get up and walk.
Yeah.
From your
I
enthusiasm
still have my
there.
pajamas on.
All right, settle down, you crazy kids. My co-hosts are the amazing poets, Susana H. Case, Carolyne Wright, and Sandy Yannone. And I just cannot tell you how much I'm honored that the three of you will, are part of this series. You really make it so great. Susana and I are in New York City, and Carolyne and Sandy are in the Washington area. So far, the We series has presented 18 virtual readings with 71 different poets from across North America, the Caribbean, South America, England, and other places. Poetry lives everywhere, and so do we. Today's reading will feature 4 poets with new books: Risa Denenberg, Allison Adele Hedge Koch, Mervyn Taylor, and Bruce E. Whitacre. We're honored that they have agreed to share their work with us today. Our run of show kicks off with Bruce. I'm going to just give you the run of show. Whitacre, who will read from his debut collection, The Elk in the Glade, which I have deeply enjoyed, with its focus on the Nebraskan landscape painter, Jenny Hicks. Next, we'll hear from Mervyn Taylor, who happens to be one of my Broadstone pressmates, and he's going to read from his new book from Broadstone, The Last Train. No matter how many times I hear Mervyn read, I find his work both uplifting and grounding at the same time. I'm personally excited to hear for the first time our third reader, Allison Hedge Koch, whose new book, Look at This Blue, was a finalist for the National Book Award. And then our last poet tonight will be Risa Denenberg, co-founder of the awesome Headmistress Press, and a poetic voice I promise you are never going to forget. So please keep your mic muted during our readings, and if you don't want to be recorded, please turn off your video. One last thing I want to mention, we are happy to include a limited open mic after our featured readers. I feel like I need one of those fast talkers like for advertising for this part, but up to 10 audience members, okay, who sign up in the chat column in the first few minutes of the reading are welcome to read one poem, just one, even if it's a haiku, just one, up to a page in length. And we had a great open mic at the last reading, so we're looking forward to this one too. It was really good. So let's get started. I'm going to introduce our first poet, Bruce Whitacre. It's my honor to introduce Bruce E. Whitacre, whose debut poetry collection, The Elk in the Glade, the World of Pioneer and Painter Jenny Hicks, was released in 2022 from Crown Rock Media and was quickly recognized as a 2022 Publishers Weekly Editor's Pick. His second collection, Good Housekeeping, is forthcoming this year from Poets Wear Prada. Bruce's poems have been nominated for the Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net and have appeared in Big City Lit, North of Oxford, and other magazines, as well as anthologies like Best International Haiku 2022, I Want to Be Loved by You, poems on Marilyn Monroe, and others. Bruce has a background in theater in New York City, both as a writer and on the business end, and I asked him if this has any impact on his work as a poet. And Bruce said that he came to realize after the fact the long poems in The Elk in the Glade are written like a screenplay, and that they are concise, vivid, and show what the camera would show. He says he made this realization after taking a workshop led by the poet Patricia Smith, who suggested that they use the idea of a camera to see how close or distant they are from an image or action. And the camera really does zoom in and pan out very skillfully throughout the elk in the glade, as it gives us a look into the life of painter and pioneer Jenny Hicks. And when I say pioneer, I really do mean that. I mean, think thatched mud roof and a very harsh landscape. As one of the poems admits, no woman was ever a willing pioneer. And Hicks painted scenes that, which I mean, says volumes about the experience of women. You know, they really do carry a heavy load. And Hicks painted scenes that existed far beyond the highway she lived off of, with its string of small, hard-scrabble towns on the brink of an industrial revolution that would change them forever. Thomas Rhys Gallagher calls the subject of most of her work an imagined elsewhere, one that contained bodies of water, shades of blue, things totally uncommon in Nebraska. And it wasn't until her husband died and she was in her 60s that Jenny Hicks created the thousands of paintings that are now in private and public collections in Nebraska and across the country. She never wavered in her pursuit of beauty, or as one of the poems says, even mud was sublime if you mixed it right. And I'll let Bruce take it from there. Please welcome Bruce Whitacre.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And one of the things I love about the WE series is that poets often share their mentors and influences. And Lynn was the first working poet I ever met. And Susana has also been a guide to me and has helped me a lot in various situations. So my thanks to the intrepid people who created this series, all four of you, and greetings to my fellow readers tonight. And I can't wait for you and for the open mic. As an open mic pro, I'm really eager to hear that. So thank you. So behind me, seemingly in this virtual background, Jenny passed away in 1977, but behind me is her first ever museum show going on now in Lexington, Nebraska. This is at the Dawson County Historical Society Museum. And you might see in the background there some of her pictures. So that's the work that she created, as Lynn said, over particularly the last 30 years of her life, when she sold over 1,000 paintings throughout the country. So Elk in the Glade is based on the oral history of my family. And so I want to start by reading the first poem, which is kind of the establishing poem. It gives you the arc of her life. And it's how I saw Jenny as a little boy when she was maybe in her 70s in her house in Farnham, Nebraska, those of you who know Nebraska. Small white house in the small town. Small white house in the small town on the High Line. Jenny tells how Horace, her father, dug the first well. They came out from Ohio betting on hope. Because father was a carpenter, the soddy had rare wood-framed windows battered hard in '88. Blizzards were a fact of life in Farnham, Moorfield, Curtis, Maywood, and beyond, the small towns of the High Line. Left her heart back in Ohio, first her favorite brother, then a lover, returned to Nebraska, the High Line, married old and had 3 girls, Esther, Dorothy, and Ruth, but it was Ohio where she learned to paint oils. Painted everything that was not High Line: purple mountains, blue lakes, green trees, elk, lion, sailboats, stones, cottages nestled, copied from calendars, postcards, magazines, then sold for a few dollars to view-starved farmers and their wives on the brown prairies. She doesn't tell how husband killed, farming, not even 60, just as he got off his knees from 29. After one farm gone, him dead, last farm sold, she moved into the small white house in the small town. A house too cold for winters, so she migrated among those daughters and their silent husbands. Couldn't wait to return across the High Line home to the small white house in the small town each spring and open the studio in the pantry. Smock and paint tubes, canvases, the smell of baking bread and turpentine, a dwindling paradise as friends die off, dumping autumn ashes on the daffodils, daughters getting older. Sons-in-law suffer her still, but home is the small white house in the small town. Paintings hung in homes across the land, a Nebraska Grandma Moses telling tales to children, now almost deaf to their voices. She gazes out the south window. Her brown eyes essay the light, sunsets and splits on the blade of the High Line, Farnham, Moorfield, Curtis, Maywood, and beyond, the small white house in the small town. So that was kind of how I saw her. And I wanted to also share one of the stories she told me. She was always so proud that despite the extreme Nebraska weather, the family always gathered for holidays, which meant a lot to her. So this is the first poem I wrote for the book, and Lynn made me write the rest of the book basically based on this poem. So thank you, Lynn. Christmas Oranges. The children were not to watch as father unloaded the snow-capped wagon. Crates and bushels went straight to the cellar and under an Indian blanket. Father pocketed the key with a wink. Jenny had to sit to keep breathing, her hands trembling as she cracked the walnuts. That evening, candles clipped to the fir tree were lit. Their dots of light graced the gingham bows, the popcorn strings, and they cast deep shadows in the parlor corners. Atop the white tablecloth brought from Ohio, turkey with stuffing, yams, and fruit pies crowded the table, so everyone ate standing or in the parlor. Mother fanned herself at the fire, exhausted, while Nora, the hired girl, hovered, hiding homesick tears. Family and neighbors joined in rolling up the rugs, then with fiddles and dancing. Jenny missed the beat. Stepping to the window, she gazed through the frosted panes. Stars arched over the prairie, horses stomped under their blankets. Father called her into the kitchen. I want you to see these first, Jenny, remember? His carpenter's hands, deft and hard, pried a crate open. Golden spheres burned into view, sweet and strange. Oranges, she cried. Father laughed. They made the last train. She remembered from last year to peel them first. The flesh exploded in her mouth, ocean, green, warm sunshine. She closed her eyes and swallowed, not here in one taste. She carried a bowlful into the parlor. The music stopped, the dancers paused. She beamed as everyone surrounded her, each reaching for an orange, the only one any of them would eat that year. The night froze in her memory like crystals on the panes, melting into a tale from time to time, like now for me, then freezing again for the next blue hour. So that's Christmas Oranges. And the book goes on to describe her courtship, her time in Ohio where she learned to paint, some of the adventures of her daughters, and then her final accomplishment as a professional painter working and selling pictures from her home in Ohio. I'm going out to Nebraska for the month of April. I have a 6-city tour lined up with a number of museums and bookstores and libraries. So we're giving Jenny a good launch when I'm out there. I want to then read a couple poems from Good Housekeeping, which, as Lynn mentioned, will be coming out from Poets Wear Prada later this year. Thank you to Roxanne Hoffman and Jack Cooper. The first one was published in north of Oxford and will be used by Stanford University in an ebook about the COVID pandemic. It was written about 3 years ago, called Station Square. I will walk to Station Square, though I won't take the train or check out new cocktails at the bar. I won't worry about departures or arrivals, weather delays or locked waiting rooms. I haven't looked at a schedule for weeks. Tickets crumple in my pocket. The trackside trees are leafing out without me. The funny man who pees all the time is no longer a comfort station customer. The pushy lady who grabs the first seat must now roll easily from kitchen chair to couch, I suppose. We gaze at screens, not out the windows of the empty trains passing by without us, through a region frozen in emergency, of seething hospitals and blinded shops. Trains clack over the heads of parents juggling children and accounts, unaided and without success. Too much out of reach, too much passed them by, too many cash earners gone. Their losses will pull the spikes from all our rails, knock the train from the trestle, and there will be nothing to wait for coming round the bend. I turn back down the silent streets and walk home from Station Square. So good housekeeping sort of takes daily life, as many of us with a lot of privilege live it, and juxtaposes it with maybe more worldly crises of climate, violence, politics, and so forth. And one of the poems, I wrote this on vacation in Rome during yet another Middle Eastern crisis, is called Sunday Morning. Sunday morning on the parquet, Sunday morning on horseback, Sunday morning picking lice from her hair with a rosary and prie-dieu, Sunday morning with Eggs Benedict hiking the trail, Sunday morning loading the llamas to flee, Sunday morning taking down the bodies hanged as warnings, lining up for rice and clean water, Sunday morning in the dog park, digging someone this trench, flying home from the slopes, Sunday morning throwing that ferry from the roof, dodging a drone, Sunday morning building Legos for the little guy, cruising garage sales for depression glass, Sunday morning spraying down the roof, probing for eels in the Keys, Sunday morning pulling corpses from the fence, teaching the porter how to read, Sunday morning reviving the witness for more, Sunday morning, God's day of rest, Sunday morning, like all the rest. So that's Sunday morning. And now I want to share the most controversial poem in the book. It gets me in real trouble, particularly in bars. It's called Chorus of Elixirs. Gin whistles, whiskey moans, wine sighs, tequila squeaks, vodka rings, champagne chirps, brandy lullabies, spirits who so generously vocalize rim to lip to ear, yet I never hear from beer. So, and then this is a new poem based on the recent exhibit of Virginia Woolf manuscripts and documents at the New York Public Library. She and probably Willa Cather are my great muses of my literary tradition anyway. Virginia's Hand. Her voice in my head sets me singing. Her opera just made a season. Pockets and water and stones, never a more tragic combine. Now here is her hand, stylus carved letters aslant, skipping ink, tiny papers, whopping workbooks, behind glass. To see is to link. I kneel, bow, and daven to my wailing wall, my grail, my bell, tinkling in letters so frail, whispering mine through a veil. I want to conclude with, I do a haiku every day and post it on social media. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, and Patricia Kerrigan's giving me a wave. She's another haiku master there. So these are some recent haikus. This is from March 13th, and I'll read each one twice. Flickers here and there, birdsong, buddings, angled sun, big preparations. Flickers here and there, birdsong, buddies, angled sun, big preparations. And this is from 5 days later, and it's sort of the same subject as what we're on here in the Northeast in our spring. March 18th, morning on the cusp, jacket and hat, but birdsong, budded but not bloomed. Morning on the cusp, jacket and hat, but birdsong, budded but not bloomed. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm really eager to hear my colleagues on the slate today. And thank you to the folks who put this series together. It's really wonderful. And I'm very, very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruce. It's a pleasure to hear from both collections, and I look forward to seeing the second one in print. The Elk in the Glade is a lovely, lovely book. So our next reader is Mervyn Taylor. I've known Mervyn Taylor for a long time, though not as long as some of the people that he writes about in his poetry, whom he's known since his youth, ordinary people as a recent reviewer pointed out, going about their daily pleasures and struggles, though this is not a book on any level about sorrow, but rather reflects a life well lived. Mervyn is above all else a storyteller, but one who does so in such a succinct language with careful attention to the details he does give us, that he's truly a master of the unsaid. What is implied is loud and powerful, in my opinion. In his latest book, The Last Train, Mervyn Taylor moves among different places: Trinidad, which is his home island, as many of you know, a middle section set in Jamaica, an island a close friend of his, Tony McNeil, was from, and to whom the book The Last Train is dedicated, and always his other home in Brooklyn. I feel truly honored to be an early reader of his work. And I want to take a page from Mervyn Taylor's approach to things here and not start gushing about how talented he is. Instead, I'll let you hear for yourself. So here is Mervyn Taylor.
Thank you, Susana. What's happening with my screen here? Sorry, guys. Can you hear me okay? Hello?
You're good. You sound
Sounds
great.
good, Merv.
Yeah, something kind of went wrong here. I'm seeing you guys on the screen kind of all over the place, but that's okay. Okay, so thank you for inviting me, and thanks for the wonderful introduction, Susana. And I think, like you said, Susana, I'll begin at the beginning again. I'm starting to feel the womb again, the walls, the fluids that come rushing in that feed me. The world is outside, waiting for a fanfare of trumpets, a limo to turn the corner, a star to alight, arms full of roses. They don't notice me at an upstairs window, watering plants, pulling a page that has gotten stuck in the printer, or taking leftovers from the fridge, having turned down an invitation to dinner by someone who stirs with a long ladle. I wait to be born again, among hampers, gifts for the homeless, songs that make us move past pandemics and hear birds without wanting to cage them, to learn to swim before I die, or you die, treading water by a boat anchored out in the harbor, you whose fins make swishes in the air, find poems I lost or haven't written as yet. I feel that womb contracting around me, pushing with all its might to have me be a part of the crowd outside, sending kisses. This is the wilds. There are mountains we climb for the view, and the ones we ascend to say we made it, the hike more brutal than we care to admit. Then there's your invite to spend a night in the woods. No, thank you. I remember the bears in that enclosure at the zoo, the poor kid who climbed in. Leave me here, I say to the swimmers who wave from beyond the breakers. The sand's a mystery, the time rocks took to degrade. The years make a map of my skin, scenes in the wilds of my head. The white whale challenges Ahab every waking moment, dreams of the deep making sense after all, and wrecks of our ships. So this is a poem. Some of these poems are dedicated to fellow poets. I'll read one of them, House of Words. And this is for my dear friend, the poet Indran Amarthanayagam. House of Words. The poet who lives there believes she'll be content, the one who followed him home, that they'll close windows and read Yeats by the fire after evenings looking for the dog star. He'll make sure they have plenty to discover. She'll want to leave every so often, but he'll remind her there was a fire and everything burned to cinders. And in the languages of dogs and stars, he'll sing her ballads from memory, even the ones that haven't been written as yet. And this is a character, I guess you can say, is a man. It's a poem called The Man Writing in the Rain. And I ask people back home, I say, have you seen that guy? And I'm surprised when a lot of them say, no, they never have. But there is such a man, the man writing in the rain. His woolen suit is soaked, but he keeps writing, bent over pages grown thick in a black binder. I wonder what the words say, what compels him to sit by the savannah, sometimes till nightfall, the image becoming so much more than the man. Behind him, the grass in green, watery lines. I stop near his bench sometimes, pretending to tie my laces or pick up a curious seed, but his eyes never once lift from the page, at which I glance in passing, his words dark and upside down. And to embarrass Susana, I think I'll read a poem dedicated to her. It's called Cartagena. Cartagena for Susana Case. She went to the old writer's town, to that bistro, his favorite place to meet and chat with the campesinos, where girls would smooth his hair while he told stories of sickness cured by romance and of a dead girl whose hair keeps growing. There, in a dark corner, under a portrait of Gabo himself, she met a guardia on leave from his country who offered to buy her something, anything. But it's the writer who holds her interest. She imagines him extending a hand before leading her in a wild paseo, she who hardly danced that she can remember, introducing herself in mid-dip, a poet, see, her Spanish so alive, her zapatos, her corazón, her alma. And there's a sort of a longish poem, not too long, but I think I'll try that on you guys today. It's called When We Were West Indian. 1, in the 20s, Uncle Jim was the city's first Black electrical inspector. And every night, Uncle Adolph changed suits to go dancing at the Savoy. Since then, we've kept coming, bodies wrapped in heavy wool, riding the subways between Harlem and Brooklyn, and in summer the Bay Bell up the Hudson, the girls making kuya mouth at the one who was late and jumped, whose shoe fell in the water. 2, on the street where America keeps her money, we found jobs, saga boys in suits with vents up to here. Some of us married the first girl we met, and some never. On 42nd, we saw Superman ask Lady Liberty to dance, mascara running down her face. We renamed Flatbush Juve City, declared it on the signpost by Woodruff, where Jerry the jeweler held court on the history of the steel pan, 2 toes lost in a diabetic war. Not far from there, the poet overlooking Prospect wrote verses on Post-its, afraid that on a trip to the desk he might forget, might miss the drums of the Haitians streaming out of the park, the officer in white not understanding a single word they were saying, the aggrieved chorus of their chanting. 3, and after all the costumes, the burakeets and perrots, the last mass we settled on was Seabees, that being as American as we could get. The scent of our callaloo hung in every hallway, and the smell of rum in cocaine palaces, where one night the prettiest of the bad girls died. The high priest filling his mouth and spraying her face in vain. We tumbled out of these places at 10 in the morning, on long avenues, in blinding light, hearts racing to record such memories as we could afford, stranded in between the two countries we call home. And in between, as Susana said, in between the three sections, the middle section is actually based on poems that I wrote while visiting Jamaica. And I want to read just maybe one of those. And the book is dedicated to a poet, a Jamaican poet named Anthony McNeil. I found out when I visited that he and I had the same birthday, same year, same time of day. So he said we were cosmic twins. For Tony McNeil, Bluefields. Reminds me of the town I come from in Trinidad, lanes and little houses. This is a good road the Americans left you, so we speed at the 90 Jenny warned me you like to do. Perhaps your Jaguar demands it. I wish I had stayed in the other car, the finger I shut the door on still tingling with pain. The little bird's ma hope cooked, still bitter on my tongue. Tony's poem about defecating on a neighbor's porch repeats its scatology in my ear. The door of each little house we go by open, like this was the safest place in the world. And I'll do maybe two more. Aripo Heights. And this is dedicated to an artist friend of mine who passed away about a year or two ago, Leroy Clark, out of Trinidad. And he actually lived, he built a place up in this mountain, Mount Aripo. Today, a girl's body was found among dry leaves in a gully where flowers grow like nothing's wrong. And the one-armed farmer plants again, his attackers driving by, laughing at how he holds the rope to his cow and waves the stump at the artist who draws from his courage, paints the wound on huge canvases, leaving them to dry in the open, where the brassy smell of snakes warn which path not to take coming down the mountain, while killers pass with another soul they tortured, flinging her remains off the edge of our world, our common place. And I'll do the title poem, The Last Train, and I want to reassure people that The Last Train doesn't mean that this is my last book. It's a title suggested in place of another title I had in mind, and I think it's a good title, but more than once or maybe too often, people are assuming that saying the last train, I mean, well, this is the last, especially since I have a poem in here called The Poem as Train. So the last train suggests something really terrible, but it's not, believe me. I intend to keep it going. The last train has gone into the ether, looking for my father, leaving a trail of smoke, the sky, the blue of his jacket, but lighter, his cap still dark, the word guard mounted in bright brass, shining among the stars. Wherever I go, it has taken me, these carriages, sitting beside a man who never went anywhere but to work and to the savannah with his goats. Any dalliance or delay kept in a private pocket, along with his long whistle, each blast a warning that it was time to board. Time to find the sleeper buried under our house and put it to stand in the garden near my mother, her fronds touching its iron spikes and his phantom thumb lost somewhere between here and Aruka. And I'll just read the poem as train as a companion to that. I'm uncoupling the verses safely, my father's severed thumb in mine. The Rockies have stopped flashing by. The Rio Grande has swallowed the moon. I go from carriage to carriage, calming passengers, one of whom says he has to be in Philly by morning. Only in the last stanza will I shout, bored, as I heard my old man do so many times. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Mervyn. And thank you, Bruce, before then. It's wonderful work so far, and we're at the halfway point at this point, but it is my pleasure now to introduce Allison Adele Hedge. You can read her bio in many places, including on the internet and in our publicity for this event. But I've been sort of pleased to know Allison for a number of years. So I'll tell a little bit about that. Her poem, first, Look at This Blue is a most haunting and many-voiced book-length poem. I've heard Allison read from it, I think, at least once, maybe twice before. So many Zoom readings of late. And it's really a haunting tribute to California and to, the survival of the people that she descends from, indigenous people, Muskogee, Cherokee, and Huron, as well as all of her other mixed ancestry, and also her own survival. So I first met Allison indirectly through her application in the mid-1990s to a fellowship at the Bunting Institute at Radcliffe College. I had been there on fellowship a few years before, and I volunteered to serve on selection committees. And what struck me about Allison's application was the essay that she wrote was just bristling with this energy, resourcefulness, and sort of determination and drive, and a recounting of her struggles to achieve as a poet and writer. I was intrigued, and my vote on that committee was to award her a fellowship. I don't know if she got that fellowship because I moved out of the Boston area soon thereafter with another teaching job or something. And she may have been offered one of the fellowships or unfunded ones, but unfunded fellowships are no good if you are on the economic edge. So I continued to remember that application. So about a decade later, when I was at the when I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in summer of 2007, I think I was at the Santa Fe Art Institute on a translator residency. I heard that Allison was in town. She was teaching at the Institute of American Indian Arts. She'd been there for a year or two. And somehow we got together, got in touch, got together, and visited some bookstores together where I acquired her. You won't be able to see this, I don't think, but I still have the copies of the books of hers that I got there. Dog Road Woman, which won the American Book Award, and I believe was her first full-length book, and then her first full-length book of poetry, and then her memoir called Rock, Ghost, Willow, Deer, A Story of Survival, which is a most gripping book of her, sort of the first several decades of her life. We actually revisited, we got together. I saw the casita in the desert outside of town where she was living. And I told her that her Bunting Institute application, had impressed me. She was just about to head to Nebraska with a 5-year endowed chair in creative writing at the University of Nebraska, Kearney. and she was looking forward to teaching there, organizing and curating a well-funded reading series, and for whom she was going to invite a lot of poets and writers who had never appeared there before, and also writing a lot. So since then, I haven't really seen her. I think we ran into each other once. We saw each other last week briefly at AWP. And, I've sort of followed her career a little bit and, was very pleased that Look at This Blue was a finalist for the National Book Award. And also that after many years of teaching all over the country on visiting positions of anywhere from 1 semester to 5 years, she's finally, at what appears to be a permanent position at UC Riverside in Riverside, California. So I was pleased to be able to bring her here and read for West East Poets of the Pandemic and Beyond. So let's welcome Allison.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you so much. And this is really a great series. I'm enjoying thoroughly. Thank you to all the readers so far. Look at this blue, Ursus blue butterfly from the sand dunes of San Francisco, first known American butterfly to become extinct due to humans, first known. Redwood burls, cut like blisters, shaved from trunks, poached life source from root, killing giants and knobby growth removals, baseline canopy height, bud tissue, unsprouted genetic code for clone of parent tree emergence. There was a barrel at my mouth, ready cocked, held there by my baby brothers, bare grip. Lemon wedge moon, half moon pops over the flat consumed shallows, over sweet sound, low rustle in Lodi water. Chortle trill, night language from standing cranes, sandhills. They've been there all along, standing still, knee-deep in station pools. Orion hovering eastward, drawn and readied. Someone slinks past door jam. Each chokehold felled vaporizes cognizance. In a world fast shaking herself loose from diabolical torrent, rising throttled song above throttled breath, choked out between calligraphies. Madness, clench fury, unfurl release, misery met in each pummeled break. It's not over. Sleep in despair, sleep moth-tongued, unrolled against central incisors, human-throated, deep yearns for saxophone, trachea windpipe, sandhills chortle, only saving grace, wetlands marshaled. There's nothing here on guardian watch. Riverside, reaching back for slip skateboard, he was hit so hard he flew while braking. A crow above whose wings were sunning swooped at the same time the car careened to halt on Martin Luther King Road, near Borwell Park, east side, where the speed limit suddenly increases while approaching 2 close crosswalks leading to homes from Stratton Community Center, Bordwell, Emerson Elementary, east side, black, brown kids, elders. Anyone can see someone once worked this out. It's all going to burn, said the man accused of setting holy fire. First the puma and Santa Paula palm branch, then coyote, fox, rabbits appear, birds overcome sky, plume, then the entire yard a carpet of undulating fleas, so thick wrapping bread bags over feet and ankles barely made it passable. Everything escaping heat from the firestormed arson. 120,000 acres blanket fired, Los Padres National Forest and more, choking like the child they found, still hung. Sleep in the dream, a bettering world. Sleep in the dream, nightmare woken. What we carry howls, boggling. Her cheek contorts in flame, unfanned, yet fanning. She eclipses all asunder, all broken. Scarface vision in temporal melt. Somewhere on my left face, you can still see where it was sewn back on. On the right, the line across the eyelid where it was sewn back on. On the abdomen, the line where it was sewn back. Sewn back, sewn back. Somewhere on my right hand where it was sewn, all the heres and theres were sewn, all the labia biopsies, removals, explorations, assaults, sewn. What we carry weeps wet-haired. Her cheek contorts when sprayed by guard, and from the first time she attempted, her neck ached. Meanwhile here, a third body of Baldwin Hills fire. more missing. Arsenic again. Someone is out there. Look at this blue, Palo Verdes blue from the Palo Verdes Peninsula, one of the best claims to being the world's rarest butterfly, first thought extinct by development. Her newly returned lays eggs on deerweed. Notice the patterning on the underside of her wing. Remember, along the way, the murdered sow bear, her cubs taken for their claws, were all just symptoms of something massive, faster, over. They're killing us, weaponizing nature, sanctifying arms, consecrating each trigger-flexed hand. Dad, remember, he was in his 80s, up on the trailer roof, a sprayer in hand, fighting back ignition, not leaving until everyone leaves. Or the time he battled out of being rolled, just smoothly turned his cane horizontal, asking the punks who should join him when he dies soon enough, until they scramble across the Kmart parking lot. Trigger turned to my face. Every right to bear bitter, every night scheme, daybreak flash. There's no need to fictionalize this dude. He is what he is, what man made, what man. Sliced labia squamous, first somewhere mid-20s, missing children, women taken somewhere. For me, it was a gully, a pond, a base, a van, a hall, a window, broken branch and canopy, trees like fingers, like stiff blade through my right hand, the bone handle separating knuckles, like gales tearing muscle, bearing my keen weight. Or E. coli, some salad in the back aisle, invader like this guy, too idiotic to merit note past his criminal code when pressing limits, cruelties, as a method of stopping poems so they could not escape. No matter the musescape, Santa Ana's, floods, frost on Orange Grove, all that counted elsewise. Was any snowfall on Topa Topa? Something was lost on the Death Wish facade, calling itself man. Ghost knocks pounded behind my head on the wall when he tried to stay there. Behind us was Limonaria, a town of a camp, now some suburban development, but then all sorts of workers and growers since 1893. Rancho Sespi, Floricantos, La Lucha we would go, Santa Paula, Fillmore, Piru, Oxnard Strawberries, Saticoy Records, Ventura Gold Beaches, Hot Peppers shouldering Blood Alley, Ventura Freeway 126 with oleanders, eucalyptus, rhododendron. I came from the camps too, not these, but I served these children. Decades ago, one Olive Land 7-year-old girl wrote, "My eyes are the green of August." I still see her eyes, her August now. Condors replenish. Phoenix half-grown chick survives Big Sur fire, matures, fathered egg with redwood queen, whose initial mate was lost to Dolan fire. All Phoenix rise. Blue-green egg until milky, milky way, split open up in some hollow redwood, on cave floor dust, cliff edge. Once my hand gleaned plume from cliff edge. Something called me to reach in and feel what left it gone. Fingers raked, pulled from pit, what remnant left there, left there. Let love lead, let hand that pummeled rest, let scowl rest, face relieve, let shoulders lock high, tight recede, let feet cracked worn ease, let back stiff sore bend open, let lungs swell breath like ocean. Let all of us, let all of us, let all of us be unbroken. Take heart, earth hears every tremble touch, feels each foot, listens now. Bring her justice, protection, peace. Look at this blue. Mutant blue-eyed coyotes chance mutation. Baby blues and 9 coyotes suggest proliferation. Silvery brown back with icy blue eyes, antennae ears turning satellite-like. Hearing voles, Santa Cruz, Sacramento, Point Reyes. Their apex predators were mostly wolves, mountain lions, or killed by humans. Here they are thriving, hunting. Blue-eyed chance mutation. Tenderloin morning, someone took a shot at me before 9 a.m. It's been 2 days since neighbors shot over me, lying over you, protecting you, since Traveler's Aid allowed me to get here to take cover, and at least your father can't kill me now. This passing car, mad at the world, takes pot shots, has poor aim, or didn't mean to score. I'm just trying to get some juice, keep hydrated. My sister's still awake from her night shift, watching you for the first time for 10 minutes, while I cross-hide, then Turk, grab a box of juice, piece of bread, head back unscathed. Pass by the old man someone brought from reservation, left here on the street. No one knows his language. My sister says he'll accept a sandwich, juice, so I go back and grab him one. Today it's orange. Here's a heel. Someone from St. Vincent's gave him a cane. He looks maybe blind or cataracted. I wish his name was known, wish we knew his home to get him with his people. Morning seems high above. The buildings block out any rise, and the whole thing seems to spin cardinal points opposite, so north is south. Ramaitush, Aloni, my sister learns at SFSU. She works late shift printing newspapers after state, working for bachelors in native studies. Takes her about 11 years to complete. Me, I'm scrambling just to hydrate, acclimate. In the year Tom Petty wailed, I said, you don't have to live like a refugee. Score before care, not cash. San Francisco labeled me indigent. Didn't offer me a home, just rent to my sister. In a few weeks, you will have red measles, not move for days, dehydrate, will nearly leave me. From me standing in line at St. Vincent's with you wrapped tightly in a sling alongside for food, medicine, essentials we don't keep. The stream of morning over your face when you recover. This is before I could express myself. Chin still positioned ready or chin down, ghosting into horizons you can't see here. Here the streets are lined with fresh refugees, straggler homeless, cardboard box men, prostitutes, pimps, beautiful neighborhood people who teach me you can get a great meal for $2 on this block, how to eat with chopsticks, which store gives free bread if you don't have the dough, lots of skin pass through, not a lonely. Look at this blue, the Mission Blue butterfly from coastal chaparral, grasslands, Mission District, San Francisco, Twin Peaks, Marin County, most upon San Bruno Mountain, the small, delicate, gossamer winged male, iridescent blue, lavender female, dark brown, blue base, fringed and long white hair like scales. The undersides are spotted, the wings spread 1 to 1.5 inches, caterpillars solely ingest native California lupine. They eat silver, summer, varicolor, lupine. The adults drink flower nectar, buckwheat, golden aster, wild hyacinth, endangered first by development. Public infrastructure project remain the significant threat. Mercy, mercy, woah. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you.
Yeah, Allison, I want to say thank you so much for really bringing to us the undersides of the neighborhoods that so many of us close our eyes so as not to see them, and and you bringing the life and voice to.
Thank you, Sandy.
To whom we need to see and hear. Thank you. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very, very grateful.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And I'm moved by Allison, and I'm always moved by the poetry of Risa Denenberg, whom I'm so honored to be able to introduce to you today. I find in Risa a poet of such incredible conscience and presence, and I admire her commitment to create poetry, community, and to amplify the voices of lesbian, bisexual, and trans identifying poets. As a co-founder of a press that I hope that you know much about, Headmistress Press, as well as poets who curate their works in chapbooks, as she has been a dedicated reviewer and curator of the Poetry Cafe, online. So I encourage you, if you are a devotee of the chapbook, to follow Risa's work, because she truly is a champion of the format. Well, her work as a family nurse practitioner has brought her face to face to witness the liminality between life and death for decades. And this has brought her to question the edges of the sacred in so much of her poetry. In her 8 collections, which include Slight Faith from Moonpath Press, Posthuman, a chapbook which was a finalist in the Floating Bridge Press's chapbook contest in 2020, and her latest, as you've seen the beautiful cover, Rain Dweller, which is also from the amazing Moonpath Press. There's a fierce intimacy that comes through in Risa's voice. It is full of the compassion, the wit, the wisdom that comes from a careful attention to the care of others. You will hear her craft, which bears these marks, these scars, and we are the better from everything that we can discern from living in this complicated world through the simplest of actions. And that action is our ability to listen to these poems that resonate their truth in all their simultaneous ability to name the horrors, injustices, and the beauty in the strangest and most miraculous places. Let us now revel together in Risa's ability and dignity to dwell in every possibility that her poems provoke. Please welcome Risa Denenberg.
Gee, Sandy. I don't know if I can live up to that. These readings have been so heartfelt today, and I'm so pleased to read among the readers who have preceded me. And I feel a kinship pretty much with all of you, and hope that you can find that kinship in my work. I'm going to read a couple of poems that aren't in Rain Dweller, the first and last of the reading, and to kind of round out some of the thinking that I do about who I am and who the world is. A lot of my poetry has been based on my clinical profession, being a nurse for so many years, and a lot of it in the newer version of me is because I've become a Pacific Northwest poet, and I've lived out here about 12 years, and it has changed me tremendously. First poem is Metanoia Lost. You may think metanoia has many meanings. In this poem, it means a conversion experience. I speak God language because people die, and God is the tongue of death. Death stopped time, left me behind my father with the small pot of raspberry jam he ate with a spoon. My storyline is a birth, a chipped tooth, an affair, a custody war, a death by fire. It's no different than yours, a flash memory in the shower, a bruise without details. Life offers tautologies. There is no God but God. Can these words offer a morsel of faith? There was no conversion the day I fell from grace and lost my name on the road. Lost is an actual place, you know. I'm going to read next from Posthuman, and it was published by Floating Bridge Press as a chapbook, and it's also included in Rain Dweller. It's a sonnet cycle, and what I'm going to read are the first 2 and the last 2 sonnets from it to give you a sense of where it wants to go. The epigraph is from Job 12:7 through 12. But ask the animals and they will teach you, or the birds in the sky, and they will tell you or speak to the earth and it will teach you, or let the fish in the sea inform you. It was a warm day in April when the coleus died. On the porch, the spider plant bowed its swords in supplication, scorched by nearby fires. Parched, the wandering Jew wandered no more. Drought defiant, the jade and snake plants endured spring, then died in summer's swelter. The house of wood quit its joists in stages of rot, and lost kin of wolves, a long-eared mutt died inside after lapping the last scraps from his bowl with a mane of dejection. In the yard, flies laid eggs and decaying remains. In due time, maggots arose to cleanse the putrid flesh. And though land lay fallow, ants kept on heaving 100 times their weight to sandy anthills. The bees were pleased that no one stole their combs. When humans perish, honey will flow and bees will grow fat and rejoice. Irises too, when they open to dew and no boot tramples their awakening. Pink stripes broadcast the dawn, frogs fall silent, chords of birdsong rise. The new garden is post-human, a term I learned from my grandson. We mourn the loss of Mother Earth, but bewail our own deaths more. Mud will sprout limbs as unnamed flora and fauna emerge. Until then, we'll fill the bird feeder. We deplore human rubbish as if we're not the root of the problem. We're nearly submerged in waste, waylaid by pipe dreams of time without end, wearing brand new sneakers, t-shirts, and sweats. Everything I know of love, I've learned from pets. And skipping to the last two. Mother has lost patience with lackluster compassion. Birds starve while oceans rise. My grandsons are now old enough to make their own babies. And Greta Thunberg will turn 100 in 2103. She cares about a future beyond 2030, tells us that survival after our departure is our nightmare, but is her reality. We stand by as Florida slips into the sea. No more Vietnam or Mumbai. It's too easy to look away, say nothing, cover our eyes with stones, and lie voiceless under cold earth, scatter our ashes in the landfill. Everything needs to change, Greta says. She's right. Everything needs to change. Everything is changing now. Mom is in the kitchen warming up human cargo to serve as leftovers. I dream of trees tapping out new codes with their roots. We stay the course as if Kismet is right over there on that other shore near the ruins. I turn to you for succor, but you've disappeared. We're a couple of old shrubs, separated by loam, losing our lineage. Beneath bark, youth, alter and acclimate. There will be no further warnings. We must learn to stop praying for ourselves. High winds ravage dwellings, wildfires jump canyons, boatloads of refugees drown as seas take back the land. Face it, it's not our world anymore. And a few poems from Rain Dweller. This one is, and that is why there are no origin stories anymore. A pair of eagles, twin giraffes, and the two of us stood there stupidly waiting side by side while fish grew wings and flew south to winter at the tiny ledge of ice melting the southernmost tip of Earth. Who finds our ruins may wonder how many millennia it took to heal swamp grass and redwood trees, wild goats and floppy-eared elephants. I want the ark to stop pairing same. It's not working. Try something new. Pair the blue whale with a green sea turtle. Bring back the woolly mammoth. I'm having that last ghost orchid feeling again. The great flood has come and gone. Our extinction will nowhere be recorded. This is obviously about a patient. The fragrance of crushed fruit for Mary A. 1. Another patient died today. I know the scent, a scent I know well, but not at all. Crumpled into a promise made 5 years ago when it was time to retire, to go on at least until she died, never planning beyond this moment. I can't describe this feeling, the way clouds claim nothing as they darken into rain. I waited expectantly, impatient at times for suffering to end, but hers or mine? Did it comfort the family to say, now the heavy lifting is over? How her longing for heaven softened that bed. 2. Tears surprised me today. I've held back so much for so long. I'm scored along the edges, chest ripe for rending. Yet haven't I walked this path before, strewn with the cloying scent of Easter lilies, my own left behind longings, my litany of corpses, dare I count them? O death, you are not a river, but I have careened your banks my whole career, studying your silences, submitting to your elegies. Another Mary plants her son at my feet, so I will know how deep pain can run. But who can know the sorrows of another? I choke over words, feel the soft stir of her in the air, and isn't this fragrance her must, the crushed fruit of her? Oh, death, walking past you, so often I look the other way, ask the buried to forgive the inelegant clatter of my steps, beg sunflowers in the field to hide their yellow faces. I have my stash of powder, the knowledge, also patience. Finding something to live for is my talent, this small raft. Enough beauty in the world. Someone on Twitter asks us to recall the most beautiful place we'd ever seen. I said Earth, because I've never been to another planet. I'm exhausted and dirty and abandoned, and I still said Earth. Floating at the helm of my lonely seabed, I survey the damage, the centuries of neglect, and whisper Earth. Married to sheepskin, to the elk herd, to Sundays with only the radio for company, I vow to love my only mother. I've been handed moments, small and large. I've wandered many places and each one stunning. Miami, Kabul, Dubrovnik, Seattle. I've traveled by plane, by ferry, on the jet stream. I've trekked barefoot in Ballet Flats. I've walked for days in the desert with only a blanket for water. All of this just to remind myself I live here. And still, I say Earth. This last poem is from my first full-length collection, which was A Mean Distance from the Sun. And it seems to have, I was planning to read it, but it seems to have been acknowledged in the ether with Mervyn's poem, The Last Train. So I'm glad I chose to read it. Terminal. The jet that is coming to whoosh me away has not yet arrived at the terminal, which is where I am always. And when it touches tarmac, when it taxis to the gate, there will be other delays, hail and brimstone, a sozzled pilot, a cat in the cockpit. I'm not in charge of the weather, but I've packed ample provisions. Still, I follow its whereabouts relentlessly. It's so easy to do, what with Google Maps and the crisscross of satellites telling us where we are and how many steps we take each day. I sometimes go offline to unwind. I reckon it's unassailably on its way. Delays are just that. I don't want to appear too eager. I do hover close so as not to miss the announcements. An ailing passenger might swap places with me in line. All I want is to chill with my book and munch my lunch. Before long, I'll organize what's left into rubbish, compost, and recollections. There'll be a damp spot on the bench when I rise. I'll wave a fond farewell and board when my row is called. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Risa, that was just beautiful. I've only read a few of the poems, but you happen to read some of the poems that I've read in Rainsweller, and they're already so indelibly kind of etched on, on my mind. So that was really, really lovely. We're going to move to the open mic. So are you guys okay maybe unmuting yourselves for the open mic? Or, okay. So the first open mic reader who's going to read one poem is Lisa Badner, who was our featured reader last time. So hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lynn. Hi, everybody. I'm not going to read from my book. I'm going to read something new-ish.
Good.
It's called Oh, Rabbi. Oh, Rabbi, her little yarmulke pinned to her pandemic long, thick salt and pepper hair, her rainbow talit, her utter brilliance. Oh, reform lesbian rabbi, newly single. Now I want to go to synagogue all the time. I eagerly stand alone in the narrow pew until my feet ache, watching her rock and chant her prophetic words, all those years slogging through childhood conservatism, empty davening, sheer vapid boredom. Her internet profile says, "On fire with God." I will try to believe. It's a communal thing, right? She wears Birkenstocks. I wear Birkenstocks. I will fast on Yom Kippur. Hineni. I will attend Torah study to learn in her divine presence about Shemitah and Deuteronomy and Jubilee. Oh, Dodie Lee. Thank you.
I love the sound in that last line, you know, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That was really fun. Patricia Kerrigan.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, one poem, Birth of the Blues. Every time it rains, the blues are born even when it's sunny. Rain isn't limited to the weather. There are days when our clouds can't hold back how we feel. The blues travel down our cheeks, say things that shouldn't be said, do things that shouldn't be done, opt for a place to be alone. The blues are what they are because they are born from our blues. The blues seek solace amid rainbows. We pick up our horns, play tunes for rain-washed trees. Thank you.
Thank you. That was lovely, Patricia. Thank you. So our third open mic reader is Fred Dodsworth.
Wow, didn't expect that. Hi, I'm Fred. I got here because I'd never heard Allison read, and I discovered Allison in the book Poetry and Science, which is quite good. And I'm really thrilled to have heard all of you guys. You guys are really powerful. This is called Embodied. I saw my father the other day. Not a usual experience. It's not that we were estranged, although we were. Neither of us entirely happy with the other, their choices. No, it was unusual because he's dead. 3 decades gone, yet there he was, staring back at me from the mirror. Normally, he would have been hidden behind the facial hair, the hair I kept to hide him from myself. But an impulse, I'm impulsive, he not so much so far as I know, caused me to erase the elegance, the flamboyant, the luxurious mustache that hid my mouth, that distracted your eyes from all the ways I look like him, from all the ways I look like her. It's funny that way, genetics. They're always there, hiding in plain sight, all the ways, visible or not, we are our parents' children.
Thank you, Fred. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Okay, thank you so much. Our next open mic reader is Laura Foley.
I wanted to thank Risa for drawing me to this group, and I've really enjoyed this reading. I'm going to read Let's Go Out for Breakfast, I say to myself. I rush my card for the famous poet's birthday to the biggest post office at 8 on Monday, so it won't arrive late. Card with a green bamboo jungle, a panda bear looking content, which I wrote reminded me of him. At the hipster cafe, I order a latte, but it's bitter, the bagel too salty to eat. I spend the morning on a stool watching strangers on the street, March winds buffeting their eyes with winter dust. At lunch, I meet my beloved, her teaching gig done, but the cool taco trucks closed. Not enough staff, explains the homemade sign. We make our hungry way home in separate cars, and I stop at the railroad crossing. Last November, her student backed onto the tracks, didn't see the oncoming train. I pause at the makeshift shrine, a wooden cross, piles of basketballs, plastic flowers, teddy bears. Though the postman told me the card will arrive late, though the coffee was undrinkable, the bagel inedible, the taco place closed, though everyone has dust in their eyes, for one moment I saw it. A single ash leaf lifting upward, spiraling over the railroad tracks, brown, but catching the light. So it gleamed in passing, spinning out of sight.
Wow, that was beautiful and sad. Thank you so much for reading. Our next open mic reader is Roxanne Hoffman. I think.
Hi, I hope you guys can hear me because
Yeah,
I'm phoning in.
Yeah, it's okay. I noticed your little tile was coming and going. I thought you were probably having trouble, and then I saw the 201 and I figured that was you.
Okay, you got it. Read all about it after Frenzy, Hitchcock, 1972. And in case people haven't seen it, it's about a serial killer who strangles women. Read all about it. Another British bird croaks, choked, defiled, dumped. Every man's fear, guilt hidden in jars kept lidded. Mamas never to be opened, peaches. Precious mincemeat, Robbie's rep stripe silk tongue tie undone. Vices, wrappings, X-draped Y chromosomes zithering.
Zithering is such a great word to end with, Roxanne. You know, I love that.
It's hard to find those Z words.
It is. Well, that's one of the best Z words. Okay, our last open mic reader is Beth Morris, who was also a former featured reader of our series. So take it away, Beth.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow's the first day of spring out here. And I'm going to read a poem I wrote when I returned from living in Florida and returned to New York. It's called Wave Hill in April. Those of you who live in the New York area know Wave Hill is the northernmost part of the Bronx, which is Riverdale, on the Hudson River. And there is a beautiful preserve there overlooking the river. Wave Hill in April. The sharp blue sky invades my nose, my throat, fills the space between my ribs, the air pure, anonymous, no taste or hint of blossoms. The cardinal, high atop the birch, invents a new song, redrafts his notes to woo an unknown mate, nowhere in sight. The river below is motionless, waiting for summer's tides to carry the sailing ships down the Hudson to the Battery. The sun, not warm enough for girls to flaunt themselves on the bows of boyfriends' boats, racing upriver for a Saturday night in Cold Spring. Crocuses are here, poking their purple and white heads above the still snow-hard ground, but they're alone. No forsythia, no lily of the valley, no buds on the birch, not yet. I want to stay, not yet. 10 years away from spring, I don't know how to face the flowering. When it comes, I want to keep, not yet. Put my hand inside the clock, stop the pendulum, because I dread the sight of newborn grass, the opening of lilacs, peonies, and roses, because I'm afraid the scent of May will crush my soul, and I'm not ready, not yet. Thanks a lot, everybody, and happy spring.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you. I just want to thank everyone in the open mic, first of all. Thank you. It's always brave. And I want to thank our readers, Bruce Whitacre, Mervyn Taylor, Allison, Adele, Hedge, and Risa Denenberg. And now I think Sandy is going to take us home. Sandy.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And again, thank you to Bruce, Mervyn, Allison, and Risa. Again, in the open mic, we heard from Lisa Bader, Patricia Kerrigan, Fred Dodsworth, Laura Foley, Roxanne Hoffman, and Beth Morris. And what, I mean, I am always astounded by the way poets, even in the immediate, will find ways to make connections through their poems with one another. That when we bring a constellation of poets together, we immediately are creating the neural pathways to have the poems speak to each other. And I found that so indelibly today in the reading, and it was just a marvel to hear those poems connecting before my very eyes and before my very ears. And I'm so grateful for the way humanity came together today. I hope all of you will join us. You know, we are an anomaly of a series in that we like to mix it up a little. So we join you every other month on the third Sunday. And so we endeavor to come to you next time with a new constellation of poets that will bring their light and their fury and all that poetry can bring on Sunday, May 21st. Circle that date. That will be our next time that we gather at this deep well of poetry. Thank you so much to also the other co-hosts of the West East Bicoastal Poets of the Pandemic reading series, and my gratitude to Susana Case, Lynn McGee, and Carolyne Wright, and to each one of you for joining us today on this eve of spring.
Mhm.
Keep writing your poems. Keep listening to each other.
Mm.
And may you all be well until we gather again. Thank you. And
Thank
have
you,
a great
Sandy.
rest of your evening.
Hugs. Hugs to
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Bruce, Mervyn, and Risa. Wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And
my
co-hosts,
gosh.
remember, Professor Case has called a brief meeting right
Ah,
after
yes.
our class.
Yeah, we have to have a little faculty meeting here.
No, so don't leave yet. Don't leave yet.
Everybody.
Thank God it's not me.
Hosts, audience can go. Audience can go. But
Yeah, yeah.
thank you to the audience. I don't know if we said that out loud, but
Goodbye, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks so much, everybody. We'll be in touch. We'll be in touch.
Goodbye, everybody. Have a great
Yep.
couple of months.
Bye,
Happy
everybody.
spring.
Bruce,
Yes, happy
safe
spring.
travels.
Almost here.
Say
Almost
hello to
here.
Nebraska for me.
Will
Yeah.
do. I'll think of you,
Bye.
Sandy.
Get back.
Okay,
Sure.
bye-bye.
Take care, everybody. Gotta go.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye,
Sure
Patricia.
should be well.
Lovely poem.
Thanks.
Bye, William. Thank you for your lovely note.
Mhm.
That's good. Very good audience today.
Yeah, it was great. It wasn't 60 in the audience. It was like, I think 34 at the highest is what I noticed, which is respectable, especially this soon after AWP.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Diana has maybe left
Diana,
us.
did you maybe, is it okay if I remove you? Because we're really done and we have to meet. I think, sometimes we walk away.
Yeah, people just, they keep their thing on and they,
Mm, oh, yeah. Oh, she just went. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all good. It's all good.
I figured she just, forgot. So, yeah.
So actually, I'm going to hand it over to Caroline because she was the one who was at AWP and had the interaction with Karen Allen. Am I pronouncing her?
I think it's Alenier, something like that. In French, it would be Alenier, but
I think it is French, but French names often get a sort of
right,
mispronounced.
right. Yeah, it's her name
Italian
is
get mispronounced.
Karen Alenier. She is one of the co-founders of the WordWorks.
Oh, yes.
The WordWorks Press. And we had a reading at AWP. It was an off-site reading. And I have my exhibit A
You guys, I
right
have to
here.
stop the recording. Hold on a second.
Oh, okay.
How do I stop?
Oh, it's up at the top. It's up at the upper left-hand corner. There's a little thing that says